collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Coming up this week, the language transfer can teach you to speak a new language within hours.
We have a Greek marathon weekend, you can say, on the 26th and 27th of July. That's the Greek 1 and Greek 2, the first Greek 2 workshop that we're making on Saturday and Sunday. So if you know no Greek at all, and you come on Saturday and you come on Sunday, then by Monday you are conversational in Greek.
Italy assumes the presidency of the European Union Council.
To entrust the European Union with the fundamental tasks that can be dealt with only at supranational level, but all the rest is better if it is tackled by the national and local authorities, which are closer to the citizens.
And as summer starts to bite, we'll hear about the problems of ensuring that everyone in Cyprus has access to water.
You know very well that the average precipitation before 1970 was about 50% more than precipitation in the last 40 years.
More and more people, it seems, are looking to learn either the Greek or Turkish language, especially if they're the other side of the divide in Cyprus. With me is a gentleman who has set up the Cyprus language transfer, and he is Michalis Eleftheriou. Michalis, what gave you the idea, first of all, because this is a new way of teaching language, isn't it?
Well, I set up language transfer around 3 or 4 years ago, and the Cyprus project is a project inside of language transfer. So the idea of language transfer is to provide free language courses, and it's inspired by all of the potential for good that languages have, from the possibilities of language therapy, where many people are looking to learn languages at a time in their life where they're looking for some escapism or they're looking to reorder their minds. Many people look for language in that time, to the practical benefits of just being able to communicate in another language and the exposure and contact that gives you, to learning in this way, which is a very empowering way of learning, which is very different to the experience that we have in our industrialized education systems. So this is why I wanted to make this project and make it for free, to share the experience I had through languages. And then the Cyprus project is a very specific element or project of language transfer. And the Cyprus project is specifically for Cyprus, working with Greek and Turkish and Cypriot Greek and Cypriot Turkish through these experiential workshops where we're coming together to learn, and also language exchange, where everybody that's had some experience of the workshop can come together and everybody's on the same page, thinking about language in the same way. And these people can come together and practice. We have the first meeting next Wednesday, the 16th, from 5 till 7 in the H4C cafe for everybody that took one of these workshops to practice. And then, so we will continue the whole year with these experiential workshops and this meeting up. We will start there in H4C, but then we will be crossing north and south together to visit different cafes north and south to practice together. And then towards the end of the year, the first recorded course for free download will come out from the Cyprus project.
Just to explain a little bit for those who don't understand how it works, how it does work, because basically, I mean, I've been to a couple of the workshops, you seem to manage to get people within the space of 2 or 3 hours to actually construct sentences.
Yeah, or less. I mean, if you think about it, then after just half an hour, you're making those constructions, and then you broaden it out so you can speak about different things during the workshop. But right from the beginning, you begin speaking. Our idea with this methodology is that we shouldn't be memorizing chunks of language. What we should be doing is completely deconstructing the language and then building it up again together in a way which makes sense for that specific language. Now, language learning methodologies are usually applied to each language in the same way. So one methodology would be applied in equally the same way to Russian or Japanese or Spanish, which is insane. The logic and the value system of Russian and Japanese and Spanish is very different. So when you are dissecting that language and then building it up again, and when we say the value system, we mean grammar, because of course different languages find different things important. And whilst Greek is very concerned with whether something happened once or whether it was ongoing, Turkish or Spanish or Russian or Japanese has very different concerns. So whilst we're reconstructing the language and doing this practically through these exercises in which we're building sentences, we gain a freedom in this new language which you don't have when you're memorizing bigger chunks.
It's taken off with quite a bang, actually. A lot of people have gone along there. You do Spanish, you do Greek, you do Turkish. I think you do Arabic as well. So where can people find out more?
On the Language Transfer website or through the social media. We have a Facebook page and Twitter, but on the Language Transfer website, you can, if you don't have social media, which many people that are coming don't, there's a social media window on the homepage where you can keep up to date with all of the events. We have a Greek marathon weekend, you can say, on the 26th and 27th of July. That's the Greek 1 and Greek 2, the first Greek 2 workshop that we're making on Saturday and Sunday. So if you know no Greek at all, and you come on Saturday and you come on Sunday, then by Monday you are conversational in Greek. And also, if you haven't come before, you can come to that meeting on the 16th at 5 o'clock in the H4C cafe, just to meet everybody and to meet me. And I know I've heard there's a lot of people that are a little bit shy about coming, so that would be a nice opportunity to come there. And then we will have another date for Turkish for this month as well, which will be released soon.
Great stuff. So if you want to learn Greek or Turkish, or indeed Spanish or Arabic, look out online for the language transfer. Michalis, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Italy has assumed the presidency of the European Council, and the Italian ambassador to Cyprus, His Excellency Guido Cerboni, told a press conference earlier this week that the presidency would concentrate on creating jobs.
With more than 26 million unemployed in Europe, our presidency action must focus on creating more jobs, facilitating competitiveness and fostering growth of the European economy. Without growth, said our Prime Minister, there is no future. During our presidency, we will concentrate our efforts to tackling youth unemployment through an effective implementation of the Youth Guarantee, while also investing on education, training and mobility of the labour force. And we will support the full implementation of the Youth Employment Initiative in all Member States. We are eager to launch the mid-term review of Europe 2020 strategy for a smart, sustainable and inclusive European economy in order to readdress our action, taking stock of the contribution from various council formations. The Italian presidency will further facilitate the work on deepening the European Monetary Union along the lines of the four-pillar roadmap outlined in the report of our presidents and endorsed by the leaders in 2012. We recognize the progress that has been made in the field of financial stability and banking union, and at the same time we urge the necessity to make a decisive step forward to achieve economic and fiscal union.
After the conference, I asked the ambassador to outline the Italian presidency's main priorities.
There are three priorities. First of all, growth. We think that without the growth, there is no future. And after many years of working on fiscal consolidation, we think that it's high time to think and to do something also for the other aspect of the consolidation and growth pact, which is the growth side. Considering the high level, especially of youth unemployment in many European Union countries, we have to take measures that are able to promote growth. And then within these measures, for instance, investing in innovation, in the digital economy, in the green economy. But this implies also, of course, a certain flexibility on the fiscal side. Because, for instance, using the EU funds implies a component of co-financing from the member states. So you have to be allowed, at least for this, to contribute to these investments, to these projects that can create opportunities, job opportunities. And we are not looking for shortcuts. Italy is still one of the net contributors and major contributors to the European Union. And we know that it's our duty, our job, to make reforms at the national level. But we cannot insist only on fiscal consolidations, because otherwise we end up like that surgeon that said, well, the operation was excellent, unfortunately the patient has died. And so this is the risk now, really, for Europe.
And it is a very real crisis point in Europe, really, in not just fiscal terms, but in terms of unity. We've seen at the last elections quite a change in the composition of, for example, the European Parliament. Is that something that the presidency will have to take into consideration?
Well, when we talk about the second priority, which is to make of Europe, the European Union a space of promotion of the fundamental human rights and consolidation of the achievements in the field of democracy that we have achieved all over the years, is the outcome of the latest election that we have in mind. Because the outcome has showed that there is a disaffection of the citizens towards Brussels, towards Europe. So that's why we intend to work also and reflect on the relations between the institutions among themselves, but also the relation between Brussels and the member states, and to promote the principles of solidarity, conferral, subsidiarity, so to entrust the European Union with the fundamental tasks that can be dealt with only at supranational level. But all the rest is better if it is tackled by the national and local authorities, which are closer to the citizens.
That does seem to be a little contradiction from the way Europe's been going recently, which is more and closer unity.
No, both more and closer unity in the fields that are requesting closer unity. For instance, the immigration policy, the asylum policies, defense and security, monetary union, banking union. These are sectors where the European Union as a whole can make the difference, because no one of the member states would be able to compete with the other major actors of the international scene, with the United States, Japan, Russia, China, the emerging powers like Brazil and so on. So there are certain sectors in which the European Union, and trusting the European Union with more powers, can make the difference. But for ordinary things, the administration of our daily life, it's something that should not be done or disposed by Brussels, should be controlled by the local authorities.
Okay, the other thing, of course, that presidency of the European Council brings is the opportunity for each country to promote its culture, its way of life and so on. Now, Cyprus and Italy have had long and very, very close ties. What sort of things are going to be going on in Cyprus on the sidelines of the presidency?
Well, the first one will be on the 18 and 19 in the framework of the Festival of the Ancient Greek Drama. There will be a group of Italian actors that will present two tragedies of the trilogy of Eschilo, the Orestia, and in particular the Libation Bearers and the Hominides. And so the first presentation will be in Nicosia on the 18th at the Makarios Theatre, and the second one, the Ancient Odeon in Paphos. We are also going to support the Paphos Festival in September, that is staging Così fa tutte by Mozart, but the libretto is by Lorenzo da Ponte, an Italian. So we haven't invented anything. Europe was already very connected also at that time. And the actors, again, are coming from Italy, from Verona. So we shall support that. We shall have a presentation of a book titled The Venetian, which is written by Cypriot writer, Lina Elina. We shall do it in September. And in October we shall have a concert by the Cyprus Symphony Orchestra, directed by an Italian director, exceptionally, and with a program mainly focused on Rossini's music, and other concerts in the last part of the year, and on which we are still working, so for the time being. But let me go back to the priorities for a while, because it was the third one that is missing, and is an enhanced role of the European Union on the global scene. And in this sense, we shall support the strengthening of the European External Action Service, and we shall try to make Europe more proactive also regarding especially regional and very close crises that are jeopardizing also the situation in the Mediterranean and in general the relations on the European continent. I'm referring to the Libya situation, to Syria, to the Middle East peace process, and to the Ukrainian crisis and the consequences that this crisis has on the relations also with Russia. Yesterday our minister was in Kiev. Today we'll move to Moscow in order to see what we can do in order to keep a dialogue and to promote a political solution of the crisis.
His Excellency Guido Cerboni, the Italian ambassador to Nicosia. This is the Cyprus News Digest. I'm Rosie Charalambous. Do please get in touch on our email, cyprusnewsdigest@gmail.com.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
Other stories making the headlines this week. Another demonstration for animal rights and welfare in the wake of the death of little Billy, a puppy thrown into a garbage compactor at the Anastasia Hotel in Protaras. Tempers flared, eggs were thrown, and 2 weeks on from the appalling event, the outrage shows no sign of abating. The government's proposal for a fixed rate, as opposed to a tiered immovable property tax, came under fire from MPs and others this week, with detractors saying that owners of high-value properties will pay less, while the burden will fall on those in the middle value bracket. The latest meeting between President Anastasiades and Turkish Cypriot leader Dervish Eroglu produced no agreement on confidence-building measures. Both sides went to the meeting with a number of suggestions, but failed to agree on any of them. They're next scheduled to meet on July the 24th. But undoubtedly the biggest story of the week was the removal of Annie Shakali from her post as head of the Migration Department. Interior Minister Socrates Hasikos has transferred her to another department in a move that has been widely welcomed. Shakali was renowned for arbitrary, often heavy-handed decisions, which sometimes ran counter to the law. Several of her decisions were overturned by the Supreme Court, but she defied the rulings, and she also denied the Ombudswoman's office access to her departmental files. KISA, the Action for Equality Support and Anti-Racism NGO, has said it hopes the decision to remove Shakali signifies a new era.
In collaboration with the Cyprus Mail, this is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
The biggest achievement of Crime Stoppers has been the ability of the public to be able to give information about crime anonymously.
There's no way I could have kept prostituting without the drugs. There's no way I could have had my body used like a public toilet, because that's actually what prostitution is.
And then the fourth series I started 3 days after I'd won the Oscar, so the whole of the Monarch of the Glen experience was all interplatted with the Gosford Park Oscar experience.
I was working with Ronnie James Dio, and David was going to reform Whitesnake in 2003.
Cyprus was chosen because Cyprus is a stable, peaceful and secure place.
We have to really look closely. What are we doing with children? What are we doing with adolescents? And what are we doing with adults that can help them move into a more literate situation?
The ones that I'm proudest of are the ones that were true discoveries, where we found something we didn't know existed.
Well, I'm sure you're aware that we've already had some searing temperatures this year in Cyprus, and it looks like they're set to continue. What does that mean? Well, for people who like to go to the beach, probably it's wonderful. But for consumers of water, perhaps not so. I can remember not so many years ago when we had our water cut 2 or 3 times a week, and it only came through the pipes for a few hours overnight. Just enough to give you a chance to do a laundry wash or something like that. That's pretty well over and done with, or is it? Not apparently if you live in some of our mountainous areas. You'd think that they would have ample supply of water, but it's not the case. The villagers of Lanya, for example, had water cuts amounting, I think, to 6 or 7 days last week. With me is the director of our Water Development Department, Kyriakos Kirou. He's here to discuss the issues and perhaps give us some solutions about what can be done. Kyriakos, very difficult time when we do have what looks set to be a long and very hot summer. But we had thought that water cuts were no longer. It seems though that is only true in the urban areas which are connected to the desalination plants.
Yes. As you know, all the big population centers are now connected to the desalination plants, and we can produce enough quantity of water for these big population centers. Obviously, these central systems are not connected to the mountainous regions of Cyprus. And let me say that due to this very exceptional winter, very dry winter, we started to have problems in areas where we never had a problem before, like Prodromos village. Obviously, we are going to solve the problem with more boreholes, but as you understand, it is very, very difficult to convey water all the way from, say, Limassol to Prodromos. It is a very expensive exercise. So we intend to solve this problem with more boreholes.
And if you drill more boreholes, do we have the groundwater? Because certainly in the coastal areas, a lot of them have become saline because the levels dropped so low. What is the state of the boreholes and the access to water in the mountainous areas?
You're right in raising this question, because usually when people come to this department and they ask for a borehole permit and they get a negative answer, they get very angry because they think that, well, what's the problem? As you understand, we're having a reservoir underneath, which is storing less and less quantity of water. So we need to manage these underground water resources in order to be able to survive in difficult years like this one, in order to be able to provide the citizens with drinking water. And this is really a problem. We need to be able to manage the aquifers. We need to control the amount of water that's being pumped out by each individual borehole, so we know what is going on.
And the problem is, of course, that if we do end up with a water table that's so low it's useless, what is the long-term solution? Because it does seem that despite all the water cuts that I mentioned, that I'm sure you remember too, went on for years,
yes.
People seem, since the desalination plants came on stream, to have just thought, well, we've got plenty of water now, and we haven't got that message across that this is a terribly precious resource. You still see people hosing down the pavements and so on.
That is unacceptable. We are doing our best to educate people. We are doing our best to let people know that water is a very scarce resource in our country, and things are going to get worse in the future due to climate change. Climate change is a fact in this country. You know very well that the average precipitation, I mean rainfall plus snow and so on, before 1970 was about 50% more than precipitation in the last 40 years. We've already had this reduction in precipitation.
So how can you go about perhaps restarting the education process that does seem to have tailed off? You don't see TV ads anymore saying save water. You don't see notices in hotels. You know, it seems we've let the whole thing go on to the back burner.
Actually, we still have some adverts on TV. We still give presentations to primary and secondary schools. Let me say that the results are really good. I mean, the young people, the pupils, they do understand the problem, and sometimes they go home and try to educate their own parents. But we still do it, obviously, with the cuts. We don't have enough money to, say, give more lectures or more presentations or more adverts. But we do continue this exercise.
And what about the long-term view? If you've got several villages up in the mountains already short of water at the beginning of July, how on earth are they going to cope right through until possibly, the early October days when maybe we'll get some rain?
Okay, let me say how we're going to tackle the problem. First of all, we intend to connect some more boreholes to the systems, so we solve the problem temporarily, say, in these areas. But everybody knows that unless we connect these villages to the central systems, there won't be any solution.
And what will that cost? Because you're talking, as you said, from taking it from the coast all the way up to the top of the mountain.
For example, we intend to build a pipeline all the way from Vasilikos desalination plant and go all the way to the western Nicosia, Astromeridis village. That is going to cost 40, probably 50 million euros to construct.
You'll get some European funding, I'm assuming, to help, structural funding?
Okay, when we talk about structural funds, let me explain that this is a kind of fixed amount of money. It's up to you where you want to use it. If we use it for this pipeline, it means something else is going to be left out. So it doesn't really matter. This is an expense we need to do. We need to spend the money to build this pipeline in the next few years.
And will that go up over the mountain to help these villages?
I will talk to you about the villages in the Limassol area. The villages in the Limassol area, there are quite a number of villages that can be supplied from the central systems economically. But pumping water all the way from Limassol to 1,400 meters elevation is a very, very expensive business. So we think that the villages high up on the mountain will survive with proper management of the aquifers up there.
But that means that the whole communities involved need to understand the scarcity and just how precious it is and how to save it.
Absolutely. And let me also add one more thing. From our calculations, we know that the average consumption per person in a village is much more than the average consumption of a person living in a town. And this is basically because they use water, good quality water, for irrigating their gardens and their plants and their trees and so on.
So we need more recycle systems installed so that water is used at least twice before it disappears.
We are installing such systems in certain villages on the mountain, but as you understand, not all villages have central sewage collection systems and treatment plants. We tend to use recycled water. I mean, actually, our minister is encouraging us to do more in this area, in other words, use more recycled water. But as you understand, this won't be enough to cover all villages. We need to economize, we need to optimize, we need to, how shall I say, make best use of water.
Kyriakos Kirou, head of the Cyprus Water Development Department. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.